Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. I didn't think I was going to do another show tonight, but this kind of just came out, so I thought it was interesting and important. While all of the talk of baby jails is taking place, and people are bleeding their hearts and crying on cameras, under the cover of that chaos, the Republican Party has unleashed a $5.4 trillion bludgeoning of the meager, tepid social safety net that we have in this country. Partial privatization of Medicare, in addition to essentially a full repeal of Obamacare. They're going whole hog. Here's the thing. These people are massively unempathetic, typically filthy, and when you give them the opportunity, they're going to go for it and try to take it out. Democrats are tepid and incremental when they're in office, but when Republicans are in office, they go whole hog. I keep saying that I wish that they were Democrats in office that behaved like Republicans, but behaved like Republicans for things that actually matter, not just somebody else's profits. But we don't get that. We don't get representation of workers, representation of the poor and the middle class. We don't get that. That's not what we get. We get radical incrementalism. People who don't know who they are, moderates, who are for all intents and purposes just Republicans. $5.4 trillion. The Republican Party passed the tax cut, a massive tax cut. Donald Trump ran around the country saying, I will not cut taxes. I will raise taxes on people like me, and proceeded to actually do the opposite. He is a reality show host and a liar. Most of the time he's opened his mouth, I assume he's lying. There are very few times where he says something that is actually true, and those are times that are more shocking than anything else. So I didn't necessarily believe him when he said he was going to raise taxes. He's running in the Republican Party. Why would you do that? That is antithetical to Republicans' ideal of making sure the rich get as much as they can possibly get and destroying all notions of commons. Gave himself a massive tax cut. $1.4 trillion. He took that money and said, I am going to take this off of the backs and the hides of the people that were crazy enough to believe that I was going to represent their interests. That's not draining the swamp. That's the opposite of draining the swamp. He put that money in the backs of the poor and the middle class, the people who would have needed that money the most. That's who he put that money on the back of. And he's trying to extract or to balance it and pay for it on the backs of your services, imposing austerity in order to pay for tax cuts for millionaires and billionaires. That's what we're getting. You had a lot of Trump supporters who thought he's draining the swamp. This is not draining the swamp. This is the opposite of draining the swamp. This is a full-scale attack on the public services, the meager services that we have at our disposal. Have you ever tried to call Social Security? How long did you have to wait? How long did you wait in DMV? I'm making the point to you that those things are directly tethered to the services and the amount of money that's invested in those services. I just did a story dealing with the NHS, where the NHS has been starved. One of the best healthcare systems in the world, starved and privatized by the Tories, ripping apart piece by piece until it gets to the point where it falls apart because they've deprived it of such money and resources. The Republican Party is doing this to Medicare. Now, Medicare is something that's loved by the public. Social Security, loved by the public. And while the public doesn't necessarily love Obamacare, they prefer it to not having insurance. You've gotten to the point where there's an utter detachment from what these people want in that office versus what the public itself want. They don't work for you. Whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, those people in Congress don't work for you. And again, I'm not saying that Democrats are saviors. I think the problem has to do with both. I'm just trying to draw a light and draw a red line around the point that Republicans are literally giving themselves a tax cut and giving their millionaire, billionaire cronies a tax cut, while at the same token extracting that out of the hides of the workers in this country These people are despicable. Let's just take a look at what's taking place. With the nation's attention rightly fixated on Donald Trump's horrific treatment of immigrant children, House Republicans on Tuesday quietly unveiled their 2019 budget proposal for calls for $535 billion in cuts to Medicare, $1.5 trillion in cuts to Medicaid, and $4 billion in cuts to Social Security over the next decade in an effort to pay for the deficit-exploding tax cuts for the wealthy. Because the rich need so much more cash. They need so much more cash. It's morally bankrupt and patently absurd and grossly un-American, the advocacy group Patriotic Millionaires said of the GOP budget proposal. Stop saying that! It is not un-American. It is American because Americans are doing it, as far as I was told. This is not un-American. What happened in the Roaring 20s? Do you remember that? That was as American as apple pie. Ultimately, they are just pulling back what was taken during the FDR's time. They've been pulling this back for the past 50, 60 years. This is not an American. This is as American as apple pie. Fucking over labor is as American as apple pie. Robert Greenstein, president of the Center on Budget for Policy and Priorities, argued in a statement that the Republican proposal clearly shows the House majority fiscal priorities haven't changed. Why would you believe they have changed? These are Republicans. They've had the same priorities for as long as I've been in my political awareness. It's easy to become numb to the harshness of these budgets and to brush aside the policy implications based on the assumptions that few, if any, of the policies will be enacted this year. Greenstein said, but this budget reflects where many congressional leaders and the president would like to take the country if they get the opportunity to enact the measures in the years ahead. Rather than help more families, they have a shot at the American dream. It asks most of those that have the least if they would leave our nation less prepared for economic and other challenges that lie ahead. Progressives have been warning for months that the GOP's plan to axe crucial safety net programs following the passage of its deeply unpopular $1.5 trillion tax bill, which has sparked a boom of corporate stock buybacks while doing little or nothing for most Americans. I've read a study on the show showing that that money went to the hands of plutocrats and little, if any, went to the hands of their workers. If anything, the workers might have got like a one-time kickback, and even that was few and far between. Each GOP bill is more fraudulent than the last. Seth Hanlon, senior fellow at the Center for American Progress, wrote on Tuesday, "We know what they stand for, tax cuts paid for with health care cuts." This bill they're trying to put forth is ghastly. And this gives you their priorities. That I agree with. The 2019 Republican budget scraps any sense of responsibility to the American people and obligation to be honest. Representative John Yarmuth, the ranking member for the House Budget Committee, said in a statement on Tuesday, its repeal of the Affordable Care Act and extreme cuts to health care, retirement, security, anti-poverty programs, education, infrastructure, and other critical investments are real and will inflict serious harm on American families. Right here. In addition to proposing devastating safety net cuts, the House GOP budget also calls for partial privatization of Medicare and the repeal of the Affordable Care Act, a move that would throw tens of millions off of their health insurance. This is what the Republicans are proposing. It's not necessarily something that's into law, but the point is, this is where they're trying to take the negotiation and the debate. And the wild thing is, when Democrats get into these debates, they start at the 50-yard line. Republicans are saying, we want the worst possible thing, so when we finally negotiate and we come up a little bit, you're still at our goal line. That's not a bad tactic for negotiation. I just wish the other party cared enough to start at a disposition like that. I'm going to end this here. I just wanted to give you this idea on what the Republicans are trying to accomplish and what they want out of these negotiations. They want everything you got. So, alright, I'll end it here. Alright guys, if you enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe, and of course, you can always support the Patreon. Thanks everyone.